Welcome to the upGrad Venture City Mini Product Conclave. I am Falgun, I'm one of the co-founders of upGrad, and thanks a lot for coming down here this evening for the event. So essentially, I think why we have all gathered here is because given and thanks to the growing digital economy of India and globally, product management has become a very attractive career option for both technology and business professionals. But one of the pain points that we keep hearing is that there is no structured and engaging community that helps people grow. So one of the things that we wanted to do along with Venture City was build this professional and peer community of product managers and developers so that both existing product managers and aspiring product managers can get the required skills in order to grow and foster their career in the space. So that's broadly the agenda. We will, of course, have a very engaging panel discussion where we will answer questions like why product management, what are the skills required in product management, who makes a great product manager, and various other questions will be discussed. But before that, I would like to invite Mana, who is the co-founder and CEO of Venture City, to briefly introduce Venture City and what they're trying to do.
Thank you, Falgun. So as Falgun said, I'm the Mina Bisanir. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Venture City. I hope most of you have heard about hackathons, which are very popular in Bangalore. And if not all, we are the force behind most of them. So Venture City is a platform that enables peer learning and provides challenges for people to kind of learn and showcase themselves. And the idea here is that, as Falgun mentioned, product management is one of the upcoming fields, which is probably doesn't have a structured graduation kind of thing where people can put it on their resumes and then just sell their portfolios. We kind of enable that in terms of giving you an avenue to showcase that talent that you have kind of gained from the field and some swans like upGrad. So that is the space that we're in, where we believe that the learning never stops, and participating in challenges is a way of learning as well as showcasing what you have learned. And it's our pleasure here to be a part of this event and engage with all of you who are aspirants and probably already product managers. And we hope to be working together a lot more. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mana, for helping us put this together and also for all your contribution. Next, very quickly, I'll invite Mayank Kumar, who is the co-founder and CEO of upGrad, to again briefly talk about upGrad and what we are trying to do with upGrad.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys, for coming down for this session. I think for us at upGrad, what we're trying to do is to sort of bring quality online programs for professionals like you guys for areas in which the skill requirements are changing very, very rapidly. So be it digital marketing, be it product management, be it data analytics, where industry requirements are changing very, very fast. The traditional sort of education system has not kept pace with that changing requirements. And as a professional, it becomes difficult for all of us to sort of quit our job, move back, take up an education program for a year or 2 years. And that's why we want to sort of plug in that gap by bringing these sort of programs for professionals. I think a very important part of us creating those programs is to bring real-life industry problems to you guys, something what Venture City is doing, and not just make it an education program where you read a book, you answer a question, and you feel the education is over. So even as part of the programs that we are offering currently at upGrad, the focus is learning by doing. And whatever that you are sort of learning, you should be able to apply those learning back into sort of what you're currently working on. I'll not talk a lot about the session today because I think the session will start very soon. But very quickly, every thought of each of the programs that we do comes from a personal pain point of ours. I think when we were looking at areas of which new programs to offer at upGrad, we always went slightly counterintuitive. Entrepreneurship, we started with a program which was not something that a lot of folks will do. Product management is another such program, which we'll talk a bit more about later. But this is one of the programs where we personally have found a lot of challenges in getting great talent. And I think the saying is the same across different sort of industries also. But I think it will be an interesting time for you guys to go through the panel discussion, raise your questions, get answers to some of your questions that you may have about the program, because about the product management as a career, because it's a very nebulous and very sort of complicated field right now. And the objective of us is to demystify product management for you through this mini product management conclave. Thank you, guys.
Start with the panel discussion. And before I start, just one thing. I know a lot of you sent in questions, so we will be starting with that. We have a power pack panel who's going to go through them. But also, please try and keep it as interactive as possible. I'll be running around with mics for the next 45 to 60 minutes. So ask as many questions as you have about why product management, what does it entail, how do I make the transition, should I even make the transition, anything that comes to your mind. So let's keep it as interactive as possible. And with that, I invite Ravi. Oh, that was quite an introduction. So with that, I invite Ravi, who is also a co-founder of upGrad and the head of product at upGrad, who will be moderating the panel discussion today.
Okay, so combined with this mic and me hobbling around, that was quite a good introduction. But thanks a lot, guys, for coming in. I think it's great to see such a big crowd here, and this is the kind of sort of community we want to build through our product management program and in general with other upGrad programs. Very quickly, I'd like to sort of introduce the panel we have. I think we've got a great set of folks covering sort of breadth of companies. We have Ankur Sharma, who's the director of products at GoIbibo. We have Sanket Gupta, who's a program manager at Google, and he mainly deals with Google Maps. We have Anish Tripathi, who's the AVP product design at Book My Show. We have Pramod Agarwal, who's the VP product development at Oracle, and he'll really bring some great sort of enterprise experience into the panel. And then we have Manish Jethani, who was the founder of Spoonjoy and then sort of moved on to head consumer products at Grofers. So guys, just a round of applause for the panel. Okay, guys, before we start, just wanted to get a sense of the audience, so we can keep sort of the questions tailored to that. How many people are current product managers right now, if we can have a show of hands? Okay. And how many people are actively sort of interested in, sort of starting or growing their career in product management? Okay, perfect. So now we know which way the crowd is leaning. Okay, great. So I think the first question then that will be relevant to a lot of people, and people keep coming sort of asking me as well. What is the outlook of this function? It's very new, it's very recent that sort of people have started talking about product management. What do you see as the opportunities going forward in the next sort of 2, 3, 5 years, in the product management ecosystem?
So India as an ecosystem is really at a rapid pace of development. Not just about startups, but also like big companies. They are setting up shops. They are expanding their footprint in India. So I think at this moment of time, the outlook for this product management, as Ravi said, it's probably new for India, but not new for companies that have been doing it in the West. But for India, I think it is at a great juncture where if you have the right skill set, there's just not a dearth of opportunity, and it's probably only going to go north from here. So I'm really excited about the opportunities that are there in the product management field.
I think my view on this is very similar to what Sanket said, that lots and lots of people in India are going to come online. So like, for example, your parents, my parents have recently started using WhatsApp, Facebook, right? There'll be tons of other products that people in India, and specifically people only in India, would need that. And a lot of those products would be built in India for Indian population. So, and here it opens up a gap that you would need a lot of people who would understand that user behavior, what kind of products needs to be built, who the customer is, who the user is, like what is his expectation. And then you would need lots and lots more product managers to convert those requirements into the technical products.
Right. So I think this question makes it harder as we go on this direction. But let me add my bit from the enterprise space perspective. That what I'm seeing in the last, especially 5 to 7 years, is that the product development companies like Oracle, Microsoft, etc. So before, the engineering shops, the R&D shops here were responsible for executing projects, right? So the product managers would be sitting in America and giving directions. So that shift is happening because now there is a critical mass and understanding of the software products in India. So even enterprise space-wise, the companies are adding up product management staff, so they are able to scale the product teams here and get the right product out the door. So I think that's a area of opportunity that's outside of what Vijay just said. The other thing that I think broadly from the perspective that Sanket talked about is the whole digitalization of every business. Right? Forget about a software product, right, that you might use for buying tickets or Google Maps or other software. Right? So there are a whole lot of digitalization of experiences inside the enterprise that's happening, right? Which is to drive the efficiency in running the business. And that digitalization, whether it is banks, whether it is governments, right, and all of that digitalization will require, like he said before, a lot of product managers who can change the game, right? So that makes it quite an exciting opportunity for anybody who's aspiring to be in this space.
So, I mean, I think we have kind of decided and figured out that it's going it's going to grow. It's an exciting opportunity. I'm just going to take a little bit of entire stand. It's never going to be as big as the developer community. Okay, it's never going to be as big as perhaps the QC community as well, right? At the end of the day, I mean, considering the Indian population, it's always being it will always be a niche community in the technology industry, in general IT industry, primarily because of the skill set which you would need. I've been doing product management for like around 9.5, 10 years in India, okay, and I've seen kind of the evolutionary phase. A lot of people when I had started used to get confused from product management to project management. You know, I used to tell them I do product management, and people used to say, "Acha, project management karte ho?" Okay, so people have started getting now that there's something called product management. Okay, and 3 or 5 years down the line, people would actually start getting what does the product manager do. Okay, however, at the same point in time, you would have to cultivate specific skill sets to be a product manager. Obviously, we'll talk about skill set perhaps later on in the panel discussion, but you know, it's going to be an exciting thing, but you need to have an appetite to be a product manager. Not everybody is going to be, and not everybody need to be, right?
I don't think my family has understood what product management
Absolutely.
is. I was earlier a consultant, they didn't get it. Then I became a product manager, they didn't get it. I think they just think I don't do anything, I'm unemployed, and I just keep making stuff up that I'm doing. But I think, Anish, before we sort of move to you, Ankur, you mentioned that the community is going to be smaller. And I think we see the numbers vary from, like company to company quite a lot.
Right.
Do you have a rule of thumb for companies, like what should be an ideal ratio for like, the number of engineers to PM, so that, the team's not too bloated, but it's still, an ideal team to keep it nimble?
It depends. I mean, so for enterprise, there would be a different ratio altogether. And there would be a product manager and there would be a product marketing manager. As against a startup where the guy end up doing both the work by himself, both the inbound and outbound product management by himself. But as a rule of thumb, you can say 1:20 or 1:30 works.
Got it.
It doesn't stresses the product manager as well as the developer out.
Right. Anish, any different thoughts?
I don't have anything left. I think they've said everything that I was thinking of as well. But I kind of just want to reiterate a little bit of what they said, that there is a lot of opportunity to become a product manager. So a product manager, what is a product manager, right? He's the CEO of the product, right? And you can't have only CEOs out there, right? I mean, who's gonna do the work as well? So obviously that's where the ratio comes in. Although, taking that whole management thumb rule that, you can't have more than 6 or 7 people reporting to you, keeping that in mind, my opinion is that you would have usually about 4:1 or a 1:5 and keep smaller teams working under one product manager, right? Although the crazy thing is, the interesting thing, I might be deviating a little bit, but, the product managers usually the engineers don't really report to the product managers, right? I think that's a very common thing that we've seen. So I think the opportunity to become a product manager is not that you're going to move into a managerial role, right? I think that's a misconception. Yeah. I think the word management behind product management, I think can be misconstrued. So I think you should look at it as you're going to be the CEO of the product, but not from a managerial perspective, but from a perspective where you're going to build and bring things to life. I think that's more important to understand, right? That you have the passion to create and build something. So, and there's tons of, obviously stuff that's going to be coming up for you to build as our data connections and, handsets increase in India with smartphones, that penetration increasing. I think there's going to be a lot of, stuff coming out of the country.
I think on the ratio side, I just want to make that there is a lot of transformation going on in the product development shops, which is movement from waterfall to agile.
Yes.
And I think this agile requires necessarily that the market requirements represented by the product manager are in tune with what the developers are doing and the QA is testing. So that's also going to influence the ratios as the development models change. And what I have seen is that with the agile mechanism, we need more product managers than we used to need before.
So as a follow-up actually to that, what you said, Anish, and we'll mix it up. Let's start this from your side, so you get more of a chance.
Right.
But when you hire new PMs, and I think that's a question which is relevant to a lot of people, and given it's different in different companies, what are the key skills you look at? Like, what do you look at in a person when you're hiring for a product management role?
Sure. The number one thing is passion to disrupt and build, right? If you don't want to build something, or if you don't have the passion to build something, or see like a user story coming to life on an interface, don't do product management, right? If you don't have that drive, you don't want to build something, don't do it. So we look for people who want to be disruptive, but have the passion to build something and have the right attitude that they're going to be sort of, leading a team. At the same time, be able to take feedback from their engineers. I think we kind of test them. So I'll tell you the typical interview process that we do is we actually put them in a situation that you have to launch a product, here's your engineer, and you're in the scenario, but the CEO saying, no, you need to launch it, I don't care about this time, put your Scrum and Agile aside, and what do you do, right? So we put them in that situation. So I think being a product manager, you need to have the conviction to take decisions and take them like a CEO who's driving a company, he usually takes decisions really fast, right? In order to steer the company or pivot the company. So you think of yourself as a mini sort of CEO setup, like a startup setup of your own, and you got to take these decisions that, I'm going to put 20% of, I'm just going to take these 2 features instead of these other 8, and I'm just going to go live with them, right? But you got to take that decision. So we try to test and see the quality of people that, do they have that conviction to take that decision? They can't be like, "Arey, I don't know, isko karenge live, but us pe depend hota hai." So no. You got to be very clear cut, because a lot is riding on you, right? The business goal is not going to be met unless you take that decision to go live. So I think decisive confidence, attitude, and passion to disrupt. Very simple.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, a lot of what he said, but I just kind of call it as that we look at if the guy is politically mature or not. Okay, that's something which is not said out in the open, but if you would actually get into a product organization, product management is one of the most politically volatile position. For most of the time, a product management is going to be an individual contributor position, which means nobody is going to report to him. At the same time, he has to get things done. From a developer who might be a fresher or would have just 2 years under his belt, who doesn't understand the long-term vision of something, from a designer who again might have a completely different vision of the product, right? From other product managers who actually want to have their say into the thing, from the CEO who actually want to get this thing done yesterday. Okay, so is he politically mature to manipulate the situations according to his needs and according to the product need, right? According to the organization need, right? Second thing is, can he actually act like and I've started saying this again and again because I have a couple of junior product managers reporting to me. Can he act like a psychotic mother, okay, who is really passionate about his products as a kid, to see them succeed, but if they are not successful, should be ready to kill them. So this is, I think it's a very, Indian problem. I don't know. Okay, so wherein they say, okay, fine. अब मैंने ये बना लिया है, अब तो मैं इसे successful करके दिखाऊंगा. There are times when you have to let go. You have to say, okay, fine. This needs to be killed or needs to be pivoted. Can you actually do that at a point where you have actually put in your blood, and sweat into it?
Do you
Data.
have kids, uncle?
I think the audience is quite serious. Nobody's laughing in the audience. Come on, guys.
We can only try. We can only try.
Yeah, and I think the third is essentially data and insights. So I mean, you would get a lot of great guys who can aggregate data, but how can the other guy make sense out of that data, right? So getting the insights, right? And yeah, I mean, if the guy knows these three things, the guy would have the attitude to learn things, right? Rest all can be taught.
And Pramod, I'll just add one more thing. I think a lot of people look at consumer companies when they're thinking of product management. Do you think there's specific sort of fundamentally different skills or things people need to know or be able to adapt at when working at enterprise at that for the same role?
There's a lot of difference between consumer company because I think a lot of use cases you can touch and feel yourself, right? In an enterprise space, it's very difficult to touch and feel the use case, right? You have to a lot of times imagine what it is going to be, right? So I think that drives a level of difficulty in enterprise product development in general. And then the other variation with enterprise markets is a lot of times, especially companies like Oracle, right? We are serving geographically distributed markets, right? So a product that I built for say HR or financials or in CRM space may be used in any country. A lot of times my market may not be here. My market may be in US or in Europe, right? So what we have seen working well for product managers in these kind of scenarios is ability to do research, right? It's very critical. And I think what he pointed about the data and analytics is important. But the greater your focus is on details and his ability to decipher those details and figure out what is it that is really needed to be built. And these requirements are generally very complex, right? So I'll give you an example. So some of my functional design documents will run into 80 to 100 pages very easily, right? Because you're detailing a lot of fine-grained requirements for the business process, regulatory requirement, legislative requirements, and so on and so forth. So attention to detail and being very patient with that period in which you're discovering the details. And the number of stakeholders you're talking to is just mind-boggling, right? And that drives a level of difficulty in enterprise product development, the way I see it. And then I think once you look at a product from that perspective, then your chances of success are lower, right? You have to live with that. So you have to be much more patient as a result, right? Patient in driving the research to the right conclusion is one of the most fundamental attributes to success that I see in my space. The other thing that I've seen very important is because the number of stakeholders are so high, you need to be really patient with the review process, get the feedback, and I think ability to influence people with your judgment or decision is quite important, right? And that's where some of the political skills come into play, decision making skills come into play. But you need to be articulate. That's one problem I find with a lot of engineers in India, that they do not articulate well in front of the global audiences especially. They're much more articulate within the Indian setup. But the moment you put the same guy in a conference call with people from all over the world, the guy just shuts up, right? And that hurts the product manager quite a bit if you can't be articulate.
And Manish, I'll just add to that question. How easy it is, when you're interviewing, how easy do you find to actually test these skills? A lot of these skills are soft skills.
I think these are relatively easier skills to test and find and cultivate. One thing that often I kind of find critical to whether it is in a product manager or not, which is like whether he grows up or not. Say things like decision making, problem solving, data. These with people with a good IQ, you can teach them. People willingness, you can teach them. But there's a certain instinct in you, which is about how much do you care about your user, and are you always obsessed or unhappy about how things are today? Like for example, to me, Steve Jobs was the greatest product manager because he always felt like how I could make everything around me 10 times better. For example, when I drive a car, I feel like why it doesn't have this functionality, or when I take a shower, every time it's like I have to mix hot water and cold water. Why can't there be a presetting that I change these two knobs and one this knob and I get a lukewarm water, right? So this is an obsession about how do you simplify things for a user, right? And this is very critical to the product manager. If he's got that mindset in everything that he's doing around the user, around his internal customer, he'll be able to figure out, the smartest of the chaps are usually able to figure out that where do I get this data from, who do I convince about it, right? But that whole passion that I have to make everything in the world significantly better is something that I think is the most fundamental thing that I look for a product manager. I typically ask them, tell me two products that you really, really love and why do you love them, and two products that you really, really hate. And that kind of tells how much passionate about they are everything that they use. Everyone uses Facebook. I said, tell me three things that you really hate about Facebook or you wished. So a lot of people come with a lot of innovative ideas. I don't like politics, but whenever there is an election going on, everybody talks about that. Is there a way I can change my feed preference for a time being that I want to exclude the status update about the people who are always talking about politics or cricket, right? So people come up with all those things because that is what the product thinking is, that every product that you're using on your day-to-day life, you keep thinking that how do you get better out of that?
And Saket, a lot of people, talk about Google as kind of like the mecca of, product management. Is there something different that Google does in its interview process as well to really identify those, like really good product managers?
Google has a very long drawn interview process, and that's not just for product managers, but for product managers, what is one difference is that you need to actually do an engineering interview with a senior engineer, which actually requires you to have some kind of technical understanding, because at the end of the day, as Anish said, you are the product CEO, but you don't have any authority. So you have to lead with your vision, you have to lead with, without any authority, you have a lot of responsibility. But at the same time, do you have the skills to convince a senior engineer that what you are, advocating for your user, is that going to come to life or not? And if you cannot talk in that language with that engineer, you won't be successful at Google. So that is one thing that Google does differently for a product manager interview. But also, I think a lot of things are a lot of these hard skills, as Manish also mentioned. They are also some way easy to test out. But things about passion, like if you see it in their eyes that people are passionate about product management or trying to solve real problems by designing a product or by bringing a product to life, I think those are some of the things that you can actually see in people's eyes, and that's very important.
I can see it in your eyes. Yeah, and I think a really good follow-up question to this, which again, something a lot of people have is, do I need to have a technical background to be a good PM? अब नहीं की मैंने coding, क्या करूँ मैं? Like, what should I do? Do I need to go code, or can I still be a good PM?
So I'll start there. So having a technical background helps, but whether it's actually required, probably not. But you should be able to communicate, because if you have that level of IQ, I think these are some of the skills that can be learned. Technical skills is not something that, but if you are afraid of technology, then probably technology itself as a sector is not right for you. You should not be afraid of technology, but at the same time, whether you will actually code, it's not really required.
Just an interruption for a very exciting announcement. There's a car, KA01MJ3873, which is blocking the entrance. So anyone sort of, if it's anyone's car. If you could please move it, that'll be very helpful. Okay. Sorry, Manish. Yeah.
I have a slightly different view. I have a little strong bias towards people knowing technology. See, product management is engineering, some bit of logical thinking or design. Either you come from a design background or you come from a technology background. Not to say that there are a lot of great product managers who would come either from technology background or engineering background or design background, but they are like more of an exception. Typically, what does it take to be a good product manager? You need to have at least one of the three grounds covered so that you can typically focus on the two, right? Some people will definitely start from zero and be able to grab all the three, but I've seen that happening very rarely. So, and typically I don't see a lot of good design guys moving towards product. It is typically the engineering guys trying to move to the product role. So I think from that perspective, yes, there's a lot of advantage. And even when you have somebody who understands that how things work under the hood, when they think of a solution, their solutions a lot of times are significantly lot better, on which an engineering team can add more value and take it to the next level, rather than a product manager which with no engineering background comes up with just a business requirement and then engineering keeps figuring out, and there's a lot of to and fro. So I think yes, definitely, I think it's very important to have engineering background, even if you don't have. First couple of months into your product management role, you should learn the basics of it.
What I found is functional skills help the most as a product manager, especially for people who are coming new into the space. So functional skills I like, and essentially functional analysts. And then I look for a design sort of bent of mind. I think Anish is going to talk about that. And then to me, engineering is not that important, but some bit of sort of information architecture view of the world is quite important. So those are three skills in that order that I prefer for the product manager.
I don't think you need to know how to code, okay, but you should know what an API is, what is an HTML, what is a JavaScript, right? So that when a developer, see, product management in the most simplistic form is a conduit between the business guy and the technology, right? So if he cannot talk to the technology in in their language and to the business guys in their language, then the conduit will fail basically, or it will leak, or whatever you want to call it, right? So so you cannot expect the technology guys to start speaking the business language, right? The developer, that's not what he's hired for. That's what you are hired for, right? So you have to actually learn at least the basics of his language and start communicating him in that language. And then, for that you need not to know how to code, right? But you need to have user sensibilities figured out. You need to know why a developer is doing what he is doing, sort of things, right? And of course, when it comes to user sensibility, user experience becomes the paramount.
Would you have a technical interview when you're hiring new PMs?
We have him talk to an engineer, for sure.
Okay. Anish, you are come from a design background, so I think you are, very relevant to answer this question of, do you ever find this challenge of sort of, if, not coming from an engineering background, is that an hindrance in any manner you feel?
No, so I'm just going to start the answer by saying I think design right now is the elephant in the room, right? That's not talked about much. Can I just ask the audience, how many designers here? Wow, that explains it. Okay, cool. So I think a lot of what everyone said, is absolutely true. That you don't need to have the technical skills, like you don't need to know how to code, right? But yes, you do need to speak their language, right? And you need to earn the respect of an engineer, right? The engineer is not going to respect you if you don't speak their language. And speaking their language is not that difficult. It's just you being, good at what Manish mentioned earlier, that you having good IQ, you can get to understand what, how the workflow is, right? How the system works. So there's like system knowledge you need to have. You need to have some technical knowledge. So that's good to have. But more importantly, the way we hire, and the number one sort of important trait that you need to have is you need to have design thinking. I'm very biased towards that, right? Why? Because everything, no offense to any engineers here or any engineers at all, but whatever happens with engineering, it happens under the hood, right? That is the bare bone of it, right? Whatever happens with the user, it happens through design, right? It happens on the interface. If that is going to be the elephant in the room, then your product is not going to perform the way it needs to, right? At the end of the day, you can build a great product. I'm not going to mention any other startup names over here, but you can mention a great product, but it just might not work because it might have bad design, right? And there are companies that, and there's opposite scenarios as well. So I think basic logical design thinking is extremely important, and I think articulating, like Manish mentioned earlier, that you need to be able to articulate your thoughts and your ideas. So I'm not saying that, hey, you need to know Photoshop or you need to know Sketch or you need to know how to sort of, define user stories. I think what you need to understand is that, do I know the basics of information architecture? Do I know how to make a task flow, right? What is information architecture? It's very simple. I give you a basket of fruits and I tell you put apples here and put oranges there. It's that simple. It sounds all fancy, but it sounds intimidating, but it's not, right? So I think you need to have some soft skills in terms of engineering, right? But you don't need to be, it's always a bonus if you are coming from an engineering background. But engineers who are designers or designers who are engineers make the most deadliest product managers.
Got it. Okay, guys, I have a lot more questions, but I think this is a good time to just open it up to the audience as well. If anyone has questions, please, if you could raise your hands and we'll get a mic to you. And you could, if you want to direct it to someone specific, you could just mention their name. Okay.
Right. I just wanted to know, some of you said that it's good to know the technical language, but how, can you get just a little more specific? Do I need to know how is Java different from another language when I'm talking to the engineer, or is it just the information architecture?
I think at a minimum, you need to be an expert in C++, Java, and HTML5. I'm only kidding.
I'm expecting that from you because, yeah.
I don't know, Manish, if you have a different perspective since you were pretty felt strongly.
I think very basic stuff, like for example, how do you, even if you could just write a simple program which will not take you more than a week, just looking at the Google, that how do I build an interface, a very ugly looking interface, just that where I can add the data, when I save it, it goes into the database, and later on I can just view that data. This might take you just 1 or 2 weeks. It's just that the resistance or the fear or not enough respect for the engineering part of it becomes more of a bottleneck. But if you kind of get to that basic, that on the job you could learn. I'll tell you my example. I wouldn't know what a NoSQL database is like till 1.5 years back. But then I would have a lot of good friends in the engineering team who wouldn't mind me asking a stupid question. And they keep me explaining that इससे ये फायदा होगा, इससे ये होगा. And then I'll go back and do the research where they would come up few more terms or throw more terms at me and then say NoSQL Cassandra or who uses what. And I'll read about it. And you will find plenty of articles which will explain you in a non-technical language that which is better than the other, why people are moving to that. So that kind of builds the context for when the next time in a meeting somebody says NoSQL and you don't look at a blank face to the engineer, so you'll be able to drive through the main point of the meeting without getting blocked.
I have something to add here for you. So again, this is again from a design perspective, but so if you're building, say, a mobile web sort of website, say for like Book My Show or whatever, and if you're a product manager, right, the user experience also kind of lies on your head, the end user experience. You are responsible for it. But if you understood that, should I just make this in plain HTML, CSS, and then kind of just integrate it through PHP, not use anything else, and will the experience be the same? No, but then there's something called React as well. Would I use React? You know what React is, right? So exactly. So you would have to just understand the industry trends on what people are building stuff in. So the user experience when you use something like React and use a Node.js server is very different. The setup just flies, right? So I think Google has sort of defined that user experience also means speed, right? The speed at which, so perceived motion. So if you show a user like a loader, he might feel that, okay, something's going to come next. But if you don't, you need to understand the underlying sort of under the hood technology that, okay, should I use plain HTML, CSS, and PHP, or should I use React, which actually enables the user experience to be better?
I think you guys
the only thing I want to
scared.
add.
No, I think at a minimum level, basically you should be able to write queries. Because see, engineer time at at these companies is very limited. They're always short on time. And if there is something that needs to be done, a dashboard needs to be created. Even talking about this language, and again going back to that engineering love and respect. At the minimum you should be able to write basic queries. You should be able to understand what is behind, and that architecture. Every company has different architecture. I think it should not be very difficult if you spend 1-2 hours with an engineer and probably do a lot more research of your own. You should be able to crack it. So it's not that difficult at the end of the day.
So HTML, CSS, NoSQL, Cassandra, Java, React, Node, and you're there. Sorry, anyone else? Oh, okay.
Yes, hi. My name is Pratyush. So this question is to all of you. You just mentioned that the product manager, actually speaks to the business team also. Do you think an MBA helps in becoming a good product manager?
Another elephant in the room.
Like to your education in MBA sort of doesn't, the education part or academics part of it, but your exposure to different set of people who come with a diverse set of industry kind of helps you bridge that gap. So if you kind of worked into a non-technology function, right, where you understand broadly how operations business work, right, you necessarily don't need an MBA because a large chunk of it is not relevant to the product management. Having that definitely helps, but that I don't think kind of having, let's say you are a person, you do an MBA, you will become a product manager, that will not happen.
I think the only thing I can say to that is for younger product managers or younger people in the room, not with the gray hair, is that if you're like say 2-3 years after engineering or fresh out of college, right? Then if you go to an MBA kind of institution, then you will get exposed to all the business functions, right? So you can understand what a finance means, HR means, marketing means, right? So that thing will help you with talking to different functions within your business for whom you're developing the product for. But if you have like a lot of experience in the field or business one way or the other, then you would have naturally acquired a lot of that knowledge and ability to interact and ask the right questions to these different people.
My personal belief is that the only advantage which an MBA or for that matter in India any kind of education adds is networking. Okay, so the kind of college you will get into which would be directly proportional to the kind of people you would end up networking with. If it would be a great college, you will actually end up meeting with great people, and that's about it. It would have no correlation with what you are going to study versus what you are going to work at. Okay, so TLDR is basically that you don't need to actually do an MBA to understand what does business does.
You went to ISB, right, Ankur?
No, I went to IIM Calcutta, but either way, it doesn't matter.
It's a personal experience.
Yeah, you don't need an MBA degree.
So some questions from the back.
Hi, this is Sumit here. I'm not sure whether this is the right audience that I need to address the question to, but still I'll put it forward. A product manager is a role which has come in limelight, at least in me or my colleagues or peer group, after the startup thing has come up. I work in an IT services company, and with changing times, they have also started to provide services in the agile mode. The projects are delivered in the agile mode, and there's a role called business analyst. He's sort of supposed to be the CEO for that feature or that module or that entire solution. Again, in that role, the same problem comes in is he's responsible for the features, but he does not have the authority. So he has a technical team or multiple technical teams on one side. He has one or multiple business teams on the other side. So in that case, My question one is, how different is a business analyst role from a product manager role in this scenario, if you try to figure out? That's something I'm still trying to figure out. I have not understood, so if you can enlighten me on that. That is the first one. The second question, the second part of the question is, I as a business analyst can understand and speak technical part, but I come in many times in a solution which is half a build, or the architecture is defined by the senior architect in the company. And when we come in and discuss with the business teams and they come up with some problems that they are facing and we propose a solution, we face a resistance from the technical team saying the architecture is defined and we are not going to change it. And if we try to bring in this feature or this new solution process in place, there will be huge amount of work, reprocessing, recoding that is required. And at that point of time, we are in a situation wherein we know that the feature is going to add significant value on one hand, but on the other hand, there is a significant effort by the technical team which they are not ready to put in. So how should we tackle these situations? Are these situations also going to come in the product management role? Thank you.
Just to summarize, I think the question is that, if you don't have direct influence, sort of how do you, without having that authority, how do you sort of influence people?
So I'll answer the first question.
Okay.
And second, I think anybody can answer over here.
Yeah.
The first question I think was that is business analyst role same as product manager? So a lot of services companies have business analysts. They don't have product managers like Mindtree, ThoughtWorks, right? Business analysts in those companies are the closest to what product manager in product companies would have. In fact, business analysts over there do a lot more than what product managers in product companies do. They build UML diagrams and all that, which product companies don't do that because in product companies, the client is the internal guy, right? You don't have to show the CEO the UML diagram, right? So I think the question anybody can
The
take.
second question
No,
about
I think
sort of
I would
leading
like
with
to add
influence.
to the first question in itself. So in a product company, the responsibility or the task doesn't end for a product manager when he's built a feature. He's trying to impact a business metrics. For example, you're trying to increase the conversion or you're trying to increase the engagement. So even if you build the feature and everybody agreed that the feature, this was the right feature, but if your business metrics does not improve, as a product manager, you've not done the right job. You'll have to revisit that and solve it. Whereas in a business analyst role, that requirement is defined by client. So if client says that you need to have button of this dimension, this is the design I have given, you as a business analyst can have an opinion or can have a feedback on that. But your task is done as long as you build what the specification said.
Just one line addition to that. You don't have a lot of authority, but you do have a lot of responsibility. And that responsibility is towards this metric that Manish mentioned. As a business analyst, you might be doing a lot of analysis, you might be doing a lot of suggestions, but ultimately at the end of the day, the metric or the number of products or number of users that you have or how much sales that you have made in an IT services company may not be dependent on the business analyst. That's not business analyst role.
The second part of the question?
Yeah, I just have one small thing to add. As to the second part of your question is, I think one of them had mentioned that you need to have a skill set to convince and a skill set to kind of, as a product manager, even though you're a business analyst, I mean, I've faced this where there's a product manager at a company that he thinks that, okay, this is not my job, and it's a very easy escape by saying, "Arey, but I'm a business analyst, so I shouldn't be doing this," right? I think in many ways, depends on the role that you're at the company. It usually ends up being the same thing. Again, like he said, it's different type of companies have that, a business analyst and a product manager. But to answer your second question, I think if you have the power of convincing, it doesn't matter if you're a product manager or a business analyst. If you can convince you can go read up on the architecture, understand the architecture, don't rewrite it, obviously try to rewrite it yourself. But then if you understand it and you convince your CTO or your VP of engineering that, boss, this is going to add a lot more value, then I think that trait is a lot more important. That influencing trait is a lot more important.
Hi, my name is Umang, and I have one question that, one of you said that you hear about some terms like NoSQL or Cassandra, and you try to find out what it means and things like that. But see, for example, I work in an IT services company again, and my whole day-to-day life would be complete my work and almost get tired, and I never get to hear terms. For example, product manager would be someone who would know about design, would know about business, and would know about tech, all three of these. But I never get to hear these terms, which I might not even hear. Like it is like if you have many friends who talk about these things, then I can like research myself.
What all blogs you are subscribed to?
So I was going to tell this also. So the only source which I refer so far is HN, which gives me all the top 30, and I try to refer it. And if it is very long post, it goes into my pocket, and then maybe Sunday, Saturday. But then apart from that, if it is short post or HN related things, what are the other sources which you guys would suggest?
Sorry, just to add to that question, because I had it as part of a list. So I'm an aspiring product manager, right? I've heard a lot of मुझे करना है, कैसे करूँ? Like what should I do? If I want to become a product manager. I mean, besides taking the upGrad program.
I was about to say that.
But what can I do to go and demonstrate to someone? Like if I come to you guys saying that I might not have prior product management experience, but this is why I'm capable. Is there something I can do actively to demonstrate that?
I think
one of the things which not a lot of product managers in India do, but I think they should do is they should have a dribble project, right? Or
A Dribble account, yeah.
A Dribble account, right? It kind of surprises me because a lot of product manager think कि अरे sketching तो किसी और का काम है, right? Wireframing तो किसी और का काम है. But a lot of wireframing has to happen. In fact, complete wireframing structurally should happen at the product management table even before you go and talk to the designer, right? Otherwise, what will happen is that you will work on the designer's vision, right? So you work in an IT services company, you are working on a project where you won't get the chance to show your product management chops. Can you actually do something in the UX side? Can you do some freelancing? There are sites like Fiverr. Can you pick up few projects and see if you can take them up? You might not be able to complete them. Can you start reading? One of the first things which I usually recommend people to start reading is VC's vlogs. Okay, so Hacker News is one of the kind of source which people want to read. The fact is that it has a lot of junk, right? So you have to signal to noise ratio is a little too high over there, right? So what I suggest them is, I mean, we can talk offline about it, but I suggest that these are like 5-6 VC blogs which you should read so that you are on top of the stuff which is happening around the world, right? And none of them are Indian VCs, by the way. Third thing is you should read Tech Mimi, okay, which is kind of, it could be your one-stop shop for all your news which you should read, right? In India, you should read Next Big What, okay. So I think this should pretty much cover all the stuff, and you should sign up for upGrad program.
I think I have a slightly orthogonal opinion to this. Some part of learning all of these blogs, you will know a lot of buzzwords that you, with your friends at the airport or with your girlfriend at a coffee house, can talk about it. To be really able to get the crux of the matter, you should try as many as product as you can, and not just try as in install kya, click next. Critically think that who you think is the user for this product, and if you were to do this, how would you do this, how better you can do this, and why would you do this. So for example, when I go to a food delivery app like say Zomato, I feel like every time I order the same thing, why can't I have a section for favorites, right? So any product that you pick up, for example, maps, when I used to use way back, I used to feel, why can't I set my home location? Now thankfully it's there, but I felt that anytime I'm outside, I want to get back to my home, it should be a single click that it's home. It's not there. So I think this has helped a lot of people I've seen build that thought process. Now learning about Cassandra and all of those things, those are necessity, not necessarily the goal. The goal has to be able to understand that who your user is, what his problem is, and what's the best way to solve that.
So I have something to add here. Basically, if some of you designers will notice that there is a website called Dribble. I'm sorry, a lot of your engineers also know. Do you know what happens on Dribble? And do you know why a lot of the designers convert to becoming product managers? They practice on Dribble. What they do is exactly what he said. They look at a Zomato, or they look at a Grover, or they look at something. They're like, you know what? I can design this better. I can think of a feature which is much better that I need over here, or it's my use case. And they do a rebound shot on it, and they put it on Dribble. Right? So they practice like that. Right? So I think that practice in a real use case scenario for you, I think that really helps. There's actually a platform called Dribble. You guys should really check it out. And a lot of product managers are also starting to look at it, and they validate their wireframe. So even if you I'll give you an example, right? There might be world perfect products that you might think, right? Some people think that, okay, hey, Zomato is like the place to find listings, right? You might think that no, they're doing something that could be done a little better. Okay, if it can be done a little better, can you sketch that out? Can you put that on a wireframe? Can you bring it to life? The minute you do that, you start thinking like a product manager, because then you start thinking, what's the impact on, okay, the data, or what's the impact on the engineering of it, or what's the impact? You start thinking only when you start sketching it and bring it to life, right? So redoing something with a use case that might help you or the world, or solving a problem in the world, I think doing a lot of that practice will make you sort of gear you towards becoming a product manager.
And that's the kind of the fastest way to get noticed. That's how I kind of hired my first UX designer, because I looked at his design and really liked how he's thought about the whole concept. So maybe if you come up with a product concept, maybe somebody looking to hire a product manager will just come across it and
So designers articulate themselves through mocks, and product managers through talking about it. But if they have supporting mocks to show their when they're articulating, I think it makes it it makes a very deadly combination.
Just to add there, one important thing when you're creating a CV for a product manager is to actually look at what your skill sets are, and within those skill sets, what product management companies are looking for is either a lot of exposure to number, that you are very comfortable with numbers, technology, and design. So these are the three things. Apart from that, if you have some kind of a user bent that's like cherry on the top, that you can think when put yourself in the user's shoes. But although putting that on the resume is a little difficult, but the other three things is actually, if you design a great mock, you can put that on your CV, right? You put it online, all those mocks, you can put it in your CV. So those are some of the three things that I think if you can position your CV in that way, it will help.
Correct. Falgun.
Hello. Hi, I'm Ravi. I'm a product owner for a year or so. I also maintain a podcast channel where I interview product leaders, mostly product managers, senior product managers. And I hope to interview a few of you. It's been quite enlightening, whatever you have discussed till now. The other elephant in the room is the domain, and this is what I'm struggling with is, I have been a product owner for a desktop-based application. I work with Autodesk. However, when I move across domains and apply for companies elsewhere who are in completely different domain, I'm struggling. So what's how to do that? And the second aspect is, how do you venture into newer technologies like IoT space or virtual reality or machine learning? So if a product manager has got no experience, how does he venture into these areas? So if you could cover them. Thank you.
Very interesting question. I think domain is a...
Sorry, Pramod, go on. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying because Ankur's gone really deep into travel. So he could also probably sort of add, because a lot of people ask this question about general versus specialist, and sort of which way should you go.
Yeah, so I mean, so I've been working in travel industry for like what 8.5, 9 years now. Okay, and it happened by chance. Of course, nobody joins a company thinking that, or joins the industry thinking that I'm going to be a lifer here, right? However, and I've heard both the views. Okay, now I've heard views wherein people have said, you know what, you should know everything about everything. Okay, and I've heard views wherein people have said, and I've known people, right? I've known a guy who had been a Perl programmer after 35 years of experience, right? He started off his career as a IBM punch card programmer, right? as an Indian, our culture drives us to be a jack of all trades. Okay, and I've tried doing other stuff as well. I've worked for a year at ESPN. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that what I have actually come to understand is that for a product manager, it helps to understand the domain. Okay, when he actually understands the domain, he is able to contribute better to the whole thing. Okay, so it has worked for me, and I usually suggest that to people that you know, you should kind of master a domain. Okay, so it need not to be industry. It could be a domain like payments, right? Or it could be a domain like you said, IoT, right? And then you can work across industries, right? So it depends on how do you actually define domain in that perspective. But in my case, it just happened to be travel, right? However, I mean, from my experience, it has worked to be a master, or it has worked to actually stay focused at one thing, because now when I actually start working on stuff in travel, I know what are the basic is, right? All I need to really have to understand is few things. Number one, what would be the political milieu of this project? Okay, I keep on bringing this political thing because I know a lot of people in India are very uncomfortable with this whole political. But the whole fact of political is that can you actually help people understand the large picture, the big vision of the project, right? The second thing is who all you are working with, right? How are you going to execute it? Can you execute it faster than what other people imagine, right? And that usually happens when you don't have to spend your energy, you don't have on to thinking that, okay, what are the new things which are happening in travel? Are there matrices which are different, which I don't know about in travel, right? I've seen my friends having the same advantages, people who have been working in payments for quite some point in time, right? When now payment paradigm is shifting in India, they are much more they are kind of in advantage to take advantage of it, right? At this point in time, as against people who are trying to move into payments. So yeah, so that has been my perspective, right? As against leveraging IoT or leveraging new. At the end of the day, you should first understand how can you actually leverage in your current industry or in your current organization, right? If it doesn't fit in your current organization, then you can't force fit it, right? If it fits, then you should also try to figure out leverage by talking to the senior guys in your organization. If there's a project which is already running, but maybe it's kind of a secret project wherein can you actually put a foot in the door and say, hey, you know what, can I actually get a peek into it? I'm very interested in learning about IoT. Can I actually work into that? If there's no fit, then maybe you should look elsewhere. But you should first understand, where does IoT sit? Obviously, you cannot predict the future. People can say, this is the future, but nobody can predict the future, right?
But I do think a product manager as a role, as a skill set, I think are pretty fungible, so to speak. But domain experience always helps. If you can go deep into one domain, depth is always preferred more than breadth as a product manager. But I think it should always be possible to shift. That's my sense. I mean, in Google, product managers keep shifting from one product to the other. In fact, the product shuts down, the product managers move to shuttle to another project or another product. So it happens all the time. And as you rightly said, you need to be aware about it. But if you have built an expertise in particular domain, you should obviously try and take advantage of that.
I think this is also subjectively to who is taking this advice. For some set of people, obviously this is the golden advice, but it also depends on what stage of career you are in. If like you're 20 to 23, and then you've got some initial 5, 6, 7 years where you can experiment and fail fast. So it's good to build the expertise, and eventually you have got 35 years of your career from the time you graduate, right? But which domain do I build an expertise? How do I know that? And when I talk to 10 people, 3 opinions, none of that is useful, because it's relevant to their context. So it might make sense that you might want to try it out early in your career, that what works for you. Try out 3-4 possible options and see which one excites you most, because unless you're passionate about that one thing, you might not be able to really excel well in that part. The other advantage is that when you kind of have experience across multiple industries, there are a lot of breakthroughs on the model side, business model side, or certain innovations which are happening on one side which can directly be used somewhere else. For example, somebody who's worked into a ticketing system knows that if the API calls are expensive, then I can do a caching. So for example, then the same guy who's working on the delivery ecosystem, or like Uber and Ola, and they have to make calls to Google and they are expensive or limited, then they might think that, can I do a caching? Because this is a perspective which comes across from a different industry.
Okay. So the definition of domain is quite important. So whether it's a technology kind of domain or a functional domain. So that's something you should think about. When you think about your own domain, what is your domain? And that I think you should direct after this conversation.
I think we just have time for the last question.
Hi, my name is Shrikant. I originally wanted to know about the breadth that the role of PM entails, because somebody wants you to know prototyping, somebody doesn't really expect that. Somebody wants a data-driven PM and somebody wants a design-driven PM, right? But then I've concluded that the industry as a whole is sort of confused as to
be able to get things done.
Right.
Yes. Okay. That's the only definition. There's no other definition.
You cannot deny that that is simplifying things, right?
No.
So yes, a lot of people, the best of the people that we've interviewed came and asked, what does a product manager in your company do? Because we really appreciate, because they've seen enough of it. To give it credit to them, 5 years back, people will say somebody who will design only thing where somebody, the founder or the CEO has cashed and he's designing, they will call him the product manager. And not just the small companies, a lot of large companies do mistake. For example, the PM role in Microsoft is a program manager role, which is not exactly what you would expect a product manager in Google or a product manager elsewhere. So each company is slightly different, and then you also have to, and because there's no kind of precedence, right? Everybody is trying to understand. So you have to go and figure out that what is their expectation or a vision for a product manager.
that is the whole reason.
Even people confuse engineering manager with product manager, that since you are the product manager, server का code फट गया है तो जाके fix कर दो. Dude, come on. I can talk all those jazzy languages, but I can't code.
That's why I was getting to my point, that so that we don't get lost into all these discussions, I've changed my question. And nowadays I ask people that what is the process of building a product in your company? I see a host of different companies. Somebody is an outright consumer, one is an enterprise company. I'd love to know the brief process, that you get a requirement from the marketing team or the sales team or the client side guy. How does it get processed on your side of the business?
I think the answer is going to be different for all of us.
Yeah.
I can get into my
we
process,
have the time to go through
I can tell you offline our entire process.
Yeah, I think we can take this question offline because it's going to be pretty long if each one of them explains the process. Yeah, thank you very much everyone for this discussion. It was great. Thank you, all of you guys.
Firstly, I want to just thank everyone here at the panel for joining us today from earlier on till even now. I think you're gauged by the questions here of the high level of interest, but equally the high level of curiosity I think everyone has to, so what does this mean for their careers? So I think we all know today there are more unanswered questions than answered questions for everyone here, not just in where the practicality of what you want to do goes to the next level, but also what does that mean to careers as we go forward. And I think that's the good part about it. That's the early days, and I think that's what we're here for. And I think today was just one sense of an engagement to sort of share and bring out the questions. And I think we're making more important notes on the questions than we are even on the answers in that context, because I think that's what allows us to sort of improve, fine-tune, and address those issues as we go forward. So without much ado, I think this is our third program as far as upGrad goes. The first one we launched was on entrepreneurship, which is a 3-month course, and it got a great response. We were ourselves surprised as to, not that in a country like India, many people want to start up. That was not a surprise. But the big question there for most people was, can entrepreneurship be taught? And I think in the 3 months there, we answered that question very sharply by going through the key aspects, where bottom line, you become a lot more aware, you learn, you engage, and the word that came out most for us was clarity. You get a lot more clarity in those 3 months. And I think that was so I think it was much more that in that 3 months, you get a lot more clarity. And from where we come, if there are 20 mistakes or 100 mistakes or 100 lessons that you're going to learn in the first 1 year, 3 months of what you start up or do or be in a startup, maybe that can be cut down by 20 less learnings as far as that goes. So if I draw that same parallel to today and what we want to do overall in product management, I think the topics that were covered today pretty much resonates and resembles what we think are the engagement levels that we're going to talk about. And I think it came to us to do product management online, primarily because all of you all are working professionals in some form or the other, and therefore you're looking at continuing with what you're doing, but upgrading yourself. And I think for a lot of people, product management, like marketing in many aspects, is what we would call a lot of logic. But there's a lot of detailing and there's a lot of depth and there are a lot of subtleties in that. And I think in the 5 months, we aim to engage with broad aspects of those subtleties to actually make them very, very specific. Because today, 5 years back, creating a product maybe took 8 months, 9 months. A lot of people did a lot of research and someone would come and make a large announcement that we're going to have one new product launch, whether it was in the FMCG segment or whether it is in the technology segment. But today, as we all know, products get launched every week, if not every day in some form or the other. So how are we going to be able to handle and be that nimble to be able and be able to gauge all of that? And yet, this world today is all full of data and analytics. And how are we going to take data and analytics and put that into practice when we're analyzing product and developing trends of the past and looking at trends of the future? So there are many aspects of that where we want to do. I'm not here to give you the details. I've got a colleague here who's going to spend some time there. But just to tell you that as much in our 3-month course, where the answer was, can entrepreneurship be taught? And I think the answer was yes, in terms of clarity. I don't think a course can make you an entrepreneur, but if you've decided to be an entrepreneur, we can give you a lot more clarity. Similarly, in this course, I think what we're here in those 5 months to give you a lot more clarity, but with a lot more detailing, and take the understanding of product management to the absolute next level. So with that, and with you all, it's not us really inaugurating this, it's all of you all coming here and participating that makes this one more step in trying to create that ecosystem. And again, I'd like you to join me in giving a round of applause to our panel today. Thank you.
So there were also a lot of questions that people asked specifically about the program, which Ravi did not cover in the panel discussion because we wanted to leave it for the end. So now I invite Kriti and Akshana to come and briefly talk about the program, and Mayank also.
Thank you, Venture City, for allowing us to sort of host with you guys. I just wanted to sort of very quickly talk about what this program is. And I think part of what we just heard on the session, what probably even Venture City does as an organization, which is bringing learning into sort of real life work, is what the objective is with this program at upGrad. I think the program, we are talking about 4 broad features of the program, which is 1, you will be learning from gentlemen like these and ladies like those in the product management domain, because I'm happy to see at least 10% participation from women here, which I would have liked it to be more than that. But I think we're trying to bring in the best-in-class industry leaders to come and deliver programs at upGrad. There's going to be one-on-one mentoring with some of these industry leaders where you as an aspiring product manager can sort of get answers to some of your questions, not necessarily related to work, but also related to career. Some of the questions that got answered today. The third very important component of the program is that there are live projects that each individual will get to work on. Some inspiration taken from Venture City as to how we can bring that online. They work on real-time project, share that with a potential employer, recruiter, and use that to sort of apply those learning into real-life context. I think that's broadly what the entire program brings on together. And then at the end of the program, education, people always say as to why you are getting educated. It's an investment for your career. So there's going to be a dedicated career support team who will be helping you out with how to look at resume, mock interviews, test cases, and then sort of get interviews with some of the leading product firms in the country. So that's generally sort of a quick introduction to what the program is. The applications are open for the program. We have identified the list of mentors who will be coming on the platform, so we'll share those with you guys. And yeah, if there's any question, folks who are mostly clueless and wearing upGrad t-shirt are the guys to come and ask those questions about what the program will entail, etc.
Hi, we have one more person, Gagandeep, who would like to share his journey as to how he transitioned from a tech background into product management.
Background to on the product management side. But still, I would like to share how my transition has been from pure engineering background to product management side. Maybe I'll just start with giving you my background. Like many product managers, I'm from a technical background. I'm a computer science engineer from NIT Surat. I worked as a solution architect with a company called Lambdocs. It's an Israel-based telecom product company. Post that, I did an MBA from ISB, and then I was a management consultant. And then I shifted to product management role. I worked with Nolarity, Spoonjoy, and Grofers. So Manish on the panel was, I've been working with him for last 1 year. So I've worked on B2B as well as B2C side of products. But yeah, though I had a background, let's say like engineering as well as on the management side, the transition was not that straightforward. I'll say that it was not something that everybody started coming to me and said that, okay, this is the role that you should take it, or this is what one should be doing. I think the major thing that everybody looks in a product manager, I think I see it from skills point of view, there are 3 parts. Though you like as a product manager, you work on the engineering, you work with the engineering team, design team, and business. So you need to have an understanding on all 3 aspects. That's for sure required. You need, like I think most of the panel has said, you need not be good at everything, but yeah, you need to excel in one aspect, and then you should be aware of other 2 domains. So that really helps. Basically, because you will have to talk, you are interacting with each of these, you can say units. You are bridge between all of them, so you should be able to speak their language. So you should not go to like a business team where you don't know how basically business is functioning, what you don't know about like what is the PNL would work, or how the operations is actually working, or maybe how the customer is coming on the app, or whatever aspect, whatever kind of product you are handling on. So you should have an understanding on the business side. You can't go to the designer and say that, okay, make something and I don't care about like whether it's how many pages it's landing on, how it should be designed. You should be able to give a constructive feedback. So that part is also required.
So hi guys, I'm Kriti. I'm the program director for the product management program, and we really brought Gagandeep here so that y'all could identify with this story. How does a person from the tech or non-product side move to product management? So I just wanted to ask you a few questions. If you could share, as you moved from tech to product management, how did you get the experience in design as such? What is your interaction with the design team on a day-to-day basis? And with the tech team, if you could share that, especially with Spoonjoy and Grofers example, that would really help.
I think from the design standpoint, I think my engineering, some of the assignments that I did during my engineering days helped me a lot. During my engineering days, I worked on a game project which I pitched into Microsoft, and for which I was part of one national level competition for them. So during that phase, I learned how to create something. So that is something which really helps you in thinking about how anybody is going to use a product. If you haven't created on something, like you're working on different companies, you're trying to solve maybe in service company or product company, you're kind of working on a very limited set where somebody has told you this, you have to do this feature, you're not really sure on why you are building that feature. How is somebody going to use it? So you need to have an empathy for end customer. How is somebody going to use that piece? Whatever you're developing, you might feel that, okay, there is some button here, it doesn't look good. How does it matter? Chalega. It is, at least it's functional. As an engineer, you first tend to think about like, okay, ban gaya, it's like minimum thing is out, it's functioning. I don't care whether button is little not aligned here, or this thing doesn't look really good, or like somebody is not able to find it really good to use. So try and create something from scratch maybe, or work on something, maybe a web project or an app or anything. Basically, that will give you a design insight. How somebody is going to use something, whatever you're creating, how that is actually solving one problem. Because unless until you do that, you might, let's say like, You use products like Ola or Uber, but some people like one over other. There is one reason for it, like why? Because the design is the critical aspect of it. So unless until you have thought from the end user point of view, you might not be able to point out why actually this design is like this and how much they had put in thought about it. So that is one thing you have to work closely on. So when you are as a product manager, you have to create on wireframes where you create like first design cut, and that's what you are providing to the designers. So it should not, because you know end user more than anybody else. Because whatever you are working on as a feature, you have spoken to the end customer who's going to use your project, or you have kind of kept yourself in his or her shoes. So it's your vision which will drive that. So work on designs, make some mock projects, create some app that would help you a lot. As it from other engineering standpoint, I think when one transitions from engineering to product management, the biggest challenge is to look at the bigger picture. Once you are like an engineer, you will say that, okay, this is, I have worked on this, this is a small thing, why can't you do it in 2 days? I would have been able to do it. Or you might want to go deep into the problem that, okay, use this technology, use this library, or go deeper into the details where you're not required to. So you have to basically give away your expertise. Like you should not be like delving deep into it and tell them how the which code integration would work or which libraries. You need not go into really depth, but yeah, you should be able to talk to them and suggest them whenever or wherever they are stuck, or you should be able to help them take a decision. But you should not really go into the depth. I think that's where the problem is. What most of the engineers who are transitioning to product management for the first time do, letting it go basically. So that's the biggest challenge. You can't expect that you will just, some eureka moment will happen and you will get to know, okay, this is what the problem is. You will have to talk to the customer, but there is, if I am working on a B2C side of a product, there would be lot much of data which is available. I'll have to analyze lot many things, how my customers are behaving. Maybe people are just coming to my site and they're dropping off. Why they're dropping off? Maybe the next links are broken, or maybe the payment is not working fine. So you'll have to look at the data from multiple aspects. That is one. So be more, you can say, conscious about the data aspect of things. Other aspect is, as a product manager, you have to do a lot of customer research. So you'll have to go on field, talk to the customer who's actually using your product, and like how they are using it, sit with them. So let's say like I'm at Profus, I'm making a product for their B2B side of businesses. So I go and sit with the end user actually who is on the ground, because that's where I get to know, okay, this is the problem they are facing, which somebody in the office won't be able to tell me. That, okay, they are facing issues with the net connectivity. Even in, let's say like, okay, Airtel might say that, okay, network is everywhere, but it is not. So there would be drops which is happening, how things are actually working, how you can solve that problem. So there are multiple aspects which you will get to know only from the ground reality, not basically sitting in the office. So you'll have to talk a lot more to your customer, whichever kind of customer is, B2B or B2C. B2B, it is a little simpler. So basically you have access to the customer. On B2C side, you'll have to put yourself in his or her shoes, and you'll have to look more on the data side. Actually, first time when I became PM, I was coming from consulting and people felt that I didn't know anything about technology. So, but I think you'll, as a product manager, you'll have to talk, like you'll have to show that you know technology. You'll have to talk to them in their language that they understand. So if anybody is moving to role maybe from design or business side to product management, they should brush up basically some kind of technology side, how actually technology team works, how, what is agile development or scrums, how do those things work, basics of understanding. Let's say like people don't know, I met some people who didn't know what is API is. So they can, if you don't know any little bit of even the jargons of whichever function you are dealing with, then you are basically in a trouble, and people, and first impression is last impression. Now, so basically if you have lost respect, it is very difficult to get it back from engineering team especially. So you should be aware of basic jargons of design to engineering as well as business. So that is something which is essential for product manager in whichever company that you work for. It would be this much of chaos. I didn't know that. So every day is a new challenge. You can't like for every other task or every other function. It is very much you can say well specified targets that you have. As an engineer, I'll do this development. I'll get it like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. As a business side, if I achieve this much of P&L revenue, I can know that, okay, this is what I. But there is no clear definition as such what product manager will have to do. He has to do on all the aspects, and it's problems. You are never short of problems. So there would be one problem or another which is coming on from different aspects. You'll have to juggle up a lot. So I think you'll have to be on top of things in all the directions that you are working on. You'll have to know what are the engineering new things are coming up in engineering as well as in business. So there are a lot much to read on, and you'll have a lot more opportunities to apply. But you can't just say that okay, now I moved, so I won't look into engineering side. I should not know about the technologies which are coming in, or the business side. If I'm a technical product manager, let's say in a company like Amazon, where it is more technical and business side product managers, but you need to be aware on both the sides. Yeah, MBA actually helps you in transition. Like it basically fast paces things for you and makes it a little easier for transition. Like at least people believe that you know things on the other side. So at least on degree, let's say like on engineering side, also people believe that after degree you know most of the things on engineering. So it's something similar. So, but I think as a engineer, when you have to shift, maybe the bigger companies won't be able to take a bet on you if I have to go for, let's say, like Series C, Series D kind of funded company, or maybe an IPO company. They won't basically go for a rookie easily. So you'll have to basically show the skill set. Maybe you'll have to move to a maybe a seed funded or Series A, Series B funded company, which are looking for talent and which maybe not be able to afford right now on B school guys, or they don't basically have that much of you can say need of people or assets, or they want people who can have to wear both the hats for them. So I know a lot of folks who are working with me even at like let's say a company like Grofer, where people who haven't done like MBA, but yeah, they joined a startup at an early stage. They knew on the business side of things, and then they basically transitioned in a product manager role. So it's not something you can't learn. It's more of you'll have to do a lot more without a B school degree. You'll have to do you have to work on your own a lot more and understand on the other aspects. Because as an engineer, when you're working on certain things, you are kind of siloed out in a project. You don't get to know the bigger picture. Because if I go back from my engineering experience, so just like initial days, I was told, okay, this is in this product, this is one feature in which you are developing, but you don't know actually what is happening in the overall things. So maybe if you go and join a startup, that will help you basically you'll get a larger, you'll get to know on the larger scheme of things. You'll get to know on the business side as well. You'll be interacting a lot more on the maybe the founders and business teams. So that will help you a lot in transitioning. Also, reading a bit more on the product management side, how things are working. Let's say like there are books maybe like by Marty Kagan and others which you should read, which give you an idea about what does product manager do. And you listen to podcasts and maybe or otherwise talk to a lot more product managers, how they are functioning, what are the resources they are using. So that will help you in transition and try and create something. If I have to say the skill set wise, there are maybe three aspects which I see a product manager should have. One is problem solving skill. Other is empathy for customer, and last one would be maybe looking at the business side of things as well. So if you can demonstrate these three skills and you can work on these three aspects, you can shift to product management. So create something new on your own. See how you can basically start just a blog maybe. That's a easy start. Maybe make a simple app. So that will help you thinking on what multiple aspects of it. And when you basically start doing it, you want to maybe monetize it later. Some of my friends have like they started making a blog and they wanted to monetize it further. They're reading a lot more about how Google AdWords would work, how other things of business, how I can make revenue out of it. They started maybe reviewing for books. So they started basically thinking on the business side of things as well. So start creating something and may work with a startup. I think that is something which is and which will give you an idea on business side. Otherwise, if a larger MNC, it is very difficult to get a idea of a larger picture because there are too many cogs in the wheel.
Yeah, and a day out activities that you do, what kind of analysis do you look at? What kind of data structure is there? Because when I'm working in an IT services company, we have data which is in the DB. So you can just go fetch the data from DB, get it in a CSV file, upload into an Excel, and figure out some lookup tables and see what kind of play around with data basically. So when you on the other side in a startup, you look at data, what kind of data you look at it, and which tools do you use, and if you're trying to transition from say corporate MNC sort of thing to a startup, what kind of tools we should look up or what kind of mindset we should have, at least from data analytics perspective.
Just database alone is just numbers, like which you can't make sense of. As such, you might be having tons and tons of data in your DB, but there is no, you can't make any sense of it. you'll have to basically make a platform. It's like you'll have to draw meaningful insights from it. So you maybe, if let's say like if you're working in a services company as well, but there would be certain problems that your customer might be facing. If you can draw those aspects from the data, let's say like your product performance is not happening, or maybe somebody else hasn't looked on that piece. So if you can draw those kind of insights, if I see from startup as a product manager, you work a lot more on data set, how your product is performing. So it's not something like I made product and somebody is using it and it's like, wow, it's working fine and my friends like it, everybody's tweeting about it, and that's where it stops. Because you'll have to see a lot more on how the product is performing. So let's say like for the app side, I'll look on the Localytics or Mix Panel. This is a basic analytics tool which basically give you an insight of how many people are coming to your product, how they are using it, where they are clicking, what's the behavior, where they are dropping off. So that funnel you will have to study on the funnel how basically people are using your product. If I have to go on the B2B side of things or maybe B2B project, how people are using it, maybe you want to go on pricing of the product. Analytics is used for my pricing. I did a pricing exercise for a B2B product. So you'll have to see on multiple parameters what people are looking for, which one what things you should give it for free, which you should not, at which plan, which value you should say that you should not give it for free, or how much you should charge for that. Okay, people pay for it and then they just don't drop off that, okay, you are too expensive. So data piece is critical for any product manager, because as a product manager, first thing you do is look at your key metrics. First thing in the morning you go in the office, first is like you check on the KPIs for your product. It can be different for different products. Let's like for B2B product, it would be utilization, or for a B2C product, it would be conversion, or if somebody is looking at the payments, maybe at the drop-offs. So whatever kind of product you're looking at, there would be a key metric that you're looking for. So you'll always look on the data and find out the problem is. Because not always somebody is going to come up to you and say that, okay, this is not working and this is the reason. Because you'll have to find the reason for the problem. People might say that this is not working and fix it like this. But that is not the real problem. They don't know, they are facing an issue, but they really don't know what the problem is. Problem might be lying somewhere else. So you'll have to look on data in multiple aspects. You should be able to think, okay, where I can get that data, how I can draw an inference from it, or maybe if I'm I'm running a startup, I might not be having that much of data. I can't run a model system where I can say, let's say like if I have to do a prediction, data modeling prediction for forecast for demand, I need 2 years of data, but my startup is 6 months old. So can't make that those kind of, but you'll have to make certain assumptions. You'll have to think about maybe give different weightages to different parameters you are handling. But data is something which will give you a pure direction. It's not something. Product management is not a voodoo science where you can say that, okay, do this and it will work. It's it's all based on a data, and you may initially might be based on hunch, but after that it's all data driven design decisions, or maybe the product decisions or feature decisions. Everything is based on data. It's not something like suddenly somebody wakes up, okay, I had maybe like a Newton apple fell on my head and like I feel that, okay, this is, I should make ping feature or maybe share feature or something. People don't do like that. So it's all based on data driven decision making that any startup or any big company works. So you have to love data. It should not be like, okay, I'm not good at maths, I don't want to look at it. Some analyst will look for me. So that's not going to happen. Product they are handling on, they're working on, they'll have different KPIs that they will be basically looking at. And these KPIs focus might change based on company's direction. So let's say like if I'm launching a company right now, a company I want to maybe focus only on growth, not on engagement. So one metric that would be like, okay, I want to increase my user base by 200% maybe next 1 quarter. So I'll make make features for that. Once, maybe after some time, I would like people to use it more often. So then engagement becomes my key metric. So essential metrics would remain the same, but it just focus would change maybe as per the company's vision and how the company is basically at which stage the company is and where the focus is right now.
Collecting the data and ensuring that the data doesn't get skewed in some direction.
Initial phase, you can't really say that you will have all the data points. So some part would be basically based on hunch only. Some aspects would you can maybe cover it using analytics tool or something, but that will give you broader direction, but not necessarily this is the true reflection of reality. So it won't be like pure prediction based mathematical model where maybe I can say that, okay, 100% sure this is maybe with 99% accuracy I can say that this is the right answer. So you'll have to maybe like take it with a pinch of salt and say that okay, this is what it might be. You'll have at initial stage, hunch is also something you'll have. Maybe that comes with the experience or your conversations with the customers. Data might not be truly reflecting it, but your interactions with customers and other involved would give you an idea about like what it might truly mean. So that's where maybe you can take a more of a calculated risk.
This is working now, yeah. So thanks a lot, Gagandeep. Thanks a lot for your time. I think it's a great session. I know a few of you have more questions, but we'll connect you with Gagandeep later, and you can also chat with him during the coffee networking session, which is going on. So thanks a lot, everybody, for coming down today. It was great talking to you, and hope you had a good time listening to our panel and getting your questions answered. Thanks a lot.